Cape Verde, a country created from fragments of completely different worlds. Volcanic islands in the middle of the Atlantic, deserts that end at the edge of the ocean, lush green valleys hidden between dry mountains, and villages built where the land seems to fall straight into the sea. For many years, it remained outside the major tourist routes. Today, we're going to explore 13 of its most extraordinary places. Ribeira da Torre, Santo Antão. Our journey begins in a place that no one expects to find in Cape Verde. Ribeira da Torre is a deep valley carved between towering volcanic cliffs that rise almost vertically. Outside the valley, everything is dry and brown. But inside, water changes everything. The moisture trapped by the mountains from the trade winds condenses and flows down. That small amount of water is enough to transform the valley floor into a lush green landscape. There are farms, homes, and footpaths along steep hillsides where it seems impossible that anyone would choose to live. Cape Verde is not just beaches and deserts. It also has valleys that feel like they belong to a completely different island. And this is the first of them. Viana Desert, Boa Vista. From green landscapes, we move to endless sand. The Viana Desert is not large, but its origin is fascinating. Its dunes were formed from sand carried by Saharan winds across the Atlantic Ocean over countless centuries before being deposited on the island of Boa Vista. The world's largest desert sent a part of itself to the other side of the ocean. The result is a miniature African desert, completely surrounded by water. From above, it looks as if a piece of the Sahara crossed the sea and became trapped here forever. Fontainhas, Santo Antão. There are villages that make you wonder, how did anyone ever settle there? Fontaine sits on such a steep mountainside that its houses seem to cling to the cliffs by determination rather than by foundations. For many years, the only connection to the rest of the island was a narrow footpath carved into the cliffside. There was no road and no alternative. And yet, the people stayed. They built farming terraces, painted their houses in bright colors, and created a thriving community where the landscape itself seemed to say it couldn't be done. The beauty of Fontainhas does not come from monuments or famous landmarks. It comes from the determination of the people who chose to make this extraordinary place their home. Pedra de Luma, Sal Island. Inside an extinct volcano lies a remarkable saltwater lake. For many years, Pedra de Luma was one of Cape Verde's most important salt mines. Salt was extracted from inside the crater and transported to the coast by rail across the volcanic landscape. The water has such an incredibly high mineral concentration that floating is effortless. It's like the Dead Sea, but inside a volcanic crater in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. One of the few places on Earth where you can walk into the crater of an extinct volcano and end up floating on its waters. Cidade Velha, Santiago Island. Cape Verde was not always a tourist destination. It was once a strategic stop along one of the darkest routes in history. Cidade Velha on Santiago Island was one of the first permanent European settlements in tropical Africa. It also became a major stop on the transatlantic slave trade. The royal fortress of São Felipe was built overlooking the coast after privateers such as Francis Drake attacked the city. From its hilltop position, the fortress still watches over the bay. Today, Cidade Velha is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and walking through its streets is a reminder that these islands stood at the center of events far greater than themselves for centuries. Santa Maria, Sal Island. After the weight of history, the landscape opens into something entirely different. Santa Maria is home to a long stretch of soft white sand, facing an ocean so brilliantly blue it hardly looks real. Yet the town was not founded as a holiday destination. It grew around the island's salt industry. Every afternoon, local fishermen still return to the pier with the day's catch, a reminder that this was a hard-working fishing town long before it became a picture-perfect beach destination. It is Cape Verde's brightest and perhaps its most peaceful side. Pico do Fogo, Fogo Island. Rising to nearly 3,000 meters, Pico do Fogo is the highest point in Cape Verde. It is also an active volcano. Its most recent eruption occurred in 2014, and remarkably, people still live inside its massive volcanic caldera. The communities living inside the crater grow grapes, cultivate coffee, and produce wine from vines originally brought from France. The volcanic ash creates incredibly fertile soil, giving everything grown here a flavor that winemakers say cannot be found anywhere else. Living inside an active volcano is not a metaphor. It is the exact reality of their daily lives. The very mountain that nourishes their land also has the power to destroy it all, and they know it. Ponta do Sol, Santo Antão, Ponta do Sol seems to have been built in the last remaining space between the mountains and the ocean. There is no flat land. Towering mountains rise immediately behind the houses, while the Atlantic crashes against the rocky shoreline just in front of them. For decades, it served as a small port town connected to the rest of the island by roads carved into the cliffs. It is a town that never expanded into the landscape. Instead, it learned to fit perfectly within it. Kite Beach, Sal Island. The trade winds blow across Cape Verde for much of the year. In almost any other place, that would be considered a disadvantage. Here, it has become part of the island's identity. Kite Beach is one of the world's premier kitesurfing destinations. Every day, colorful kites fill the sky as riders glide across vast stretches of water that the wind never allows to remain calm. The wind that would be a problem elsewhere is exactly the reason people come here. Paul Valley. Santo Antão. Paul Valley is one of the most fertile agricultural regions in Cape Verde. Its steep hillsides are covered with sugarcane, coffee, bananas, and vegetables, all carefully planted on terraces that make use of every possible inch of sloping land. The water flowing down from the mountains is managed with knowledge that has been passed down from one generation to the next. Every canal, every diversion, and every terrace bears the mark of centuries of trial and error. Seen from above, the valley looks like a green mosaic carved into the heart of a massive volcanic mountain. Everything that grows here has been won meter by meter against the steep slopes. Santiago Island. Santiago is the largest and most populated island in Cape Verde. Within just a few kilometers, the landscape changes dramatically, from dry mountains to fertile valleys, from rugged coastlines to hidden beaches, from bustling markets to mountain trails where you may not encounter another person for hours. It is also the cultural heart of the country. Cape Verdean music, cuisine, and the Creole language all have their deepest roots here. More than just an island, Santiago is the key to understanding how the identity of an entire nation was shaped. Monte Brianda, Monte Brianda is the side of Cape Verde that rarely appears in travel guides. It is a highland landscape, sculpted by the wind and marked by ancient volcanic formations. There are no crowds, no famous landmarks, only mountains, hiking trails, and the constant feeling of being far away from everything. It is the kind of place that reminds you that much of this archipelago remains exactly as it has always been. Volcanic land, endless wind, and profound silence. Santa Lucia. Our journey ends on an island where no one lives. Santa Lucia has no permanent population. Its dry mountains, deserted beaches, and volcanic hills are left entirely to the forces of the wind and the Atlantic Ocean, untouched by permanent human settlement. It is one of the last truly wild places in Cape Verde, a landscape preserved much as nature created it. Here, the silence is broken only by the sound of the wind and the waves, bringing our journey across this remarkable Atlantic archipelago to a perfect close. There are no roads, no electricity, no buildings. It is the perfect ending because it captures the very origin of the entire archipelago volcanic land rising from the Atlantic Ocean, isolated, silent, and still ruled by nature. Before the ships arrived, before the salt mines and the villages, every island in Cape Verde looked like this. Santa Lucia is the only one that still does. Cape Verde is neither completely green nor completely desert. It is a remarkable blend of volcanoes, fertile valleys, sweeping sand dunes, seemingly impossible villages, and coastlines open to the vast Atlantic. A small country on the map, yet one shaped by landscapes that seem to belong to entirely different continents. And now, as the world is finally beginning to discover it, we may be witnessing one of Africa's best-kept secrets. Cape Verde is a place where nature, history, and resilience come together to create one of the most extraordinary island nations on Earth.